All right, welcome. Thanks for being here. My vision for this time is that it is very helpful, either because you get to have your own issue solved or you learn from hearing about other people's issues. For those of you who were not here when I said it, this is set up so that if you feel more comfortable not sharing your face or even changing your name to something like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or something, you're welcome to do that. I want this to be a place where you feel safe sharing your issues or concerns or getting your questions answered. There's a couple ways you can share a question or concern. You can raise your hand. That's down at the bottom of your screen under reactions. You can also send a chat. That's also at the bottom of your screen. You can send it directly to me, Sarah B. Stern, or you can send it so that everybody can see it. That's up to you. I want you to share and ask questions according to your own comfort level. Before I start answering questions, however, I will give a short, I still don't have a good name for this, but like a short TED Talk about family business. That's how I'll start this session. That's how I always start this session. And then we'll have open time for about 50 minutes for questions. Couple ground rules, as I always already said, I want you to feel comfortable asking questions. So ask them in the chat directly to me, to everybody, or go ahead and raise your hand and you can ask a question. This is, I like to call it Las Vegas rules, which means if you hear a story from another family business, please don't go Google that person, find out the hometown they're in, and then go gossip it all around their hometown. I assume you're not going to put that much effort in, but please don't go talking about what you heard. Oh my gosh, can you believe this? Can you believe that? This is meant to be a supportive environment. Other really important rule here is this is open to family business owners. This is open to future family business owners. It's open to the leaders of family businesses who aren't family members, and then advisors who work with them. So it's really important that this is a no sales environment. If you raise your hand to ask a question and start by saying, my name is Sarah Stern and I'm an EOS implementer and I really want your business and blah, 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 or do some of those things that we've all seen at conferences, I'm going to interrupt you and ask you to stop and you won't have your chance to ask your questions. So really important to me to make this be a learning opportunity and a chance to get your questions answered. So with that, here's what I have prepared for my very short TED Talk today. I hope this is helpful. And again, we'll get a better name, the Fed Talk, the TED Talk, the Family Business Talk, I don't know. But I want to talk about fairness in family businesses. This is a question I see written about on a regular basis. This is a question I am asked on a regular basis. Like, how do we actually figure out what is fair? For those of you who've seen the 3-circle model of family business, you'll know just what I mean when I say things like, well, in the family, this is fair, or in ownership, this is fair, or in business, this is fair. So I'm going to step back and just briefly say, there's a concept that I did not come up with. Harvard came up with this. I have been given credit for this. I do not deserve credit for it, although I will take credit for making the 3-circle model of family business a real thing that people talk about in the family business world on a regular basis. So here's what the 3-circle model is. If you imagine a 3-circle Venn diagram, so 3 circles all overlapping in the middle, that's called the 3-circle model of family business. And there's different leaders for each. There's different meetings for each. And there's a different definition of fair for each. So the 3 circles are this. There's the family, there's business, and then there's ownership. I'm kind of drawing it with my hands here. So 3 circles, they overlap in the middle: family, business, and ownership. For some people, that alone is mind-boggling to think, oh my gosh, the business doesn't have to run just like the family. The owners don't need to work just like the business. I'm going to dig in and I'm going to describe what a 100% healthy family business would look like when we talk about fairness. So in the business, fairness is defined. So like how much you get paid is defined by what does market rate pay for a job that you're the right person to do it, and it's a seat that's needed in the business. So for example, if your company, if the thing your company is best at is growing, harvesting, roasting, and selling peanuts, and you have a family member who's a genius at making Lego constructions, I'm guessing you do not need a Lego constructor in your peanut family business. So the definition of fair is irrelevant. That Lego constructor should not be in the business because the business needs to have a job that the person's skills and abilities and interests align with. So fair inside a family business is you pay that person, family, same last name or not, market rate for a job that is needed in the business. For those of you who haven't been here before or don't know me, my favorite type of family business example is one that's completely made up and ridiculous. For example, the peanut company with a Lego construction person in it. So if you can't stand that, I'm sorry, it's not going to change. So I'm not sorry, you just might want to go or throw up in a bucket or something. So that's the definition of fair inside the business circle. Inside of the family circle, the definition of fair in a very healthy family is fair is equal. So an example of this is, let's say you have 3 kids in the family. The first one gets their driver's license and they get a brand new car, and it's a terrible car. And one of the doors flies open every time they take a left turn, and it stops randomly. If the second kid in the family turns 16 and gets a brand new top of the line BMW, that would not be what I would consider fair, unless that first kid's car was a vintage car that they could someday sell for a whole bunch of money. So, right, it can get a little iffy, and I'm just being silly again to make my point. But fair in the family is fair is equal. Equal amounts of money given. Equal amounts of money, let's say, in the family trust. Fair is equal. In the ownership circle, fair must be defined by the ownership group and then consistently followed. I know of a family business where the oldest kid is 19 years older than the youngest kid. When they started thinking about ownership, the oldest kid was 39 and the youngest kid was 20. They had to think about what is fair. If they started gifting ownership right away, the child who's now very much an adult, who's 39, would get less ownership by the time they turn 65 than if they started gifting right away at 20. But the bottom line for that ownership circle is fair is defined by the ownership team. So I can't tell you the perfect definition other than define it and then follow it consistently. Everybody, it should work the same way. If one family member needs to buy ownership into the business, another family member is given that ownership. That is not the same. That is not consistent. So you want to find a way that next generation leaders become owners and then follow it consistently. So again, family circle, fair is market rate payment for a job that is needed in your business and that the person is doing well at. Can't just say all the kids get the same amount of money. That's actually not fair unless the market rate for what they're doing happens to be all the same amount of money. In the family, fair is equal. In ownership, it must be defined by the ownership group and then followed consistently. Here's what I see on a regular basis. You may be working in a family business that works this way. What happens is sometimes one of those circles or the voice in one of those circles is stronger. So for example, the leader of the family might say, well, it's fair is equal in our family, and that's the way it's going to be in the business. They try to take the definition of fairness for the family and put it over into the business. Well, it feels nice and feels fair. It's actually very dysfunctional and can cause lots of problems. My example of this is, I know of a family business. One of the siblings in the next generation is running the business day to day. Another, and they're very good at that job and it's needed. Another member of the next generation is very good at their job and the job is needed, but their primary role is doing accounts receivable. Now that job is very important to have excellent cash flow in the business, but the market rate for those two jobs is significantly different. Unfortunately, until the last 2 years, those two people were making the same amount of money. It was causing a huge amount of resentment for the person who should have been being paid more. And it was really, really not fair because the person who should have been being paid less was paid way more than anybody else in their department. And because it was the finance department and everybody in that department could see how much they were being made or how much they were being paid, it was causing resentment in that whole entire finance team. So that's what I'm talking about there. So when you take the definition of fair from the family and you put it on the business, it causes huge problems. Same thing can happen where you might have in the business, you're paying one person significantly more, could be in the same example, although this isn't true for this family. One person is paid more, they have a larger level of responsibility. What can sometimes happen is they take the rules of fairness for the business and try to put it on ownership and say, well, the person who's running it, they should get lots more ownership than the person who's in charge of accounts receivable. Well, if that's decided that that's how you want to do ownership and you do that consistently, great. But if you're just saying, if you run the business, you get more ownership. If you don't run it, you get less. That's lazy. It's a little bit easy, but it can cause a great deal of resentment. You want to define what should ownership look like, and then do it consistently, not just adopt the rules from another circle. I hope that's helpful. That was 8 minutes, and that's always my goal. So first things first here, please raise your hand or put a question in the chat, or just go ahead and you can talk here. Do you have any questions of clarification on what I shared? I'll give a couple of minutes for that, and then we'll have an open forum for any questions you have. So first and foremost, any questions on my little short talk here? Things you want clarified, things you didn't understand, anything out there? I'm going to wait for a couple seconds in awkward silence. I see one hand raised. Callie.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for the raise hand emoji and I
Yeah.
couldn't find it. I'm like, so it's kind of on the same topic of fairness, but let's say you've got a mom and dad owner and 3 siblings. All 3 siblings have some, let's say 20, 20, 20, right? And
Sure.
mom and dad have 4.
Yep.
So you have equal ownership, but 2 of the 3 work in the business and have different positions, and pay is fair. It's market rate. So that's all good. And the 3rd sibling happens to be the youngest sibling, is an owner, but at this point in time is not invited to. I mean, they're just trying to get on their feet with having board meetings, but they're not really being thought of as a board member or a owner or what. So there's other issues of fairness, like, well, these 2 have ownership and there's benefits to that. I mean, the 3rd one does too. And so they'll get distributions, but a voice, right? Fairness and voice. I'm wondering what your comments would be about how do you ensure that? What do you think is kind of, not that there's one right way to do it, but what do you think is the right way to handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. Thank you, Callie. I have opinions about that, but first, I'll get around to that if that's helpful. But it really does come down to, if the owners believe that if you don't work in the business, that you have to be essentially a passive owner. You don't get to come to the meetings, you don't get to vote, you have non-voting shares, etc. If that's the belief of the ownership group, great. Just follow it that way always. Where that can be an issue is if the mom or the dad in this situation decide they want to retire and they're no longer in the business, what they're setting themselves up for is to no longer have a vote. And they usually don't like that. They usually still want to have a vote. So that's where it can get tricky. And that's where I say pure health is you make agreements about how that works, and then you follow it consistently no matter what. That being said, I know of an ownership group that says, you don't have to work here. You never have to work here, but you will never get a vote unless you are over the age, I don't know how they picked it, over the age of 37, or you work here. I think they decided a person is adult enough at the age of 37 to actually get a vote. I think that's how they got that number. I don't really know why that specific number, but that's one way that a family business I know of did it. You either have to work here actively or be a certain kind of adult age in order to get a vote. That's one way they did it. My opinion, this is just my opinion, is I think running a business is a total and completely different skill set than owning a business. And so in my mind, I don't see a big difference between, or I don't see a real strong reason that a person should have to work in a business day to day to be a good owner. And as a matter of fact, I know a whole bunch of people who work day to day in the business and they're terrible owners because they cannot elevate their brain outside of the day to day and how much did we pay for that you know, how often do we buy Kleenex, or like very in the business kinds of things. So that second part is only my opinion. Although I have a strong one about it, so I was compelled to share. Did that answer your question, Kelly?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does. And in the situation I'm thinking of, the sibling owners, none of them have voting shares at this point.
Okay.
But the two that are in the business are in the board meetings. And again, they're
Sure.
just trying to get this off the ground. So it's kind of like, do they bring the third sibling on? Like
Yeah.
it's to set a precedent, right? Do they bring that third one on? And I would think that if they do, that third sibling needs to be a good owner. Right.
Yeah.
Even if they don't work in the business, if they're going to come to a board meeting or that's the expectation, they need to be prepared. They need to know what the agenda is. Maybe they even have questions or present on something. I don't know, but that'd be my kind of view. But I think if they're an owner, my opinion is they should be in board meetings if they're an
Yeah.
owner, voting or not, because otherwise they're just collecting distributions. It's super passive.
I
But
agree. And the reason I agree is this, and please, anybody on this call, point out to me that I'm wrong in the statement I'm about to make. I do not know of a great place to learn how to become an owner other than sitting in owner meetings.
yeah,
And that's why I say, if you know of a great place I could send people to learn how to be the owner of a business, I want to know that. I want to share it with the whole world. But in my experience, the number one best way to learn how to be a great owner is to sit in an ownership meeting. Even if you don't talk, even if you don't vote, if you hear the kinds of things that are being discussed, how they're being discussed, if you hear about the amount of things that owners need to take into consideration on every single decision, to me, that is the number one learning ground. And I would rather an owner in that meeting always, because I think it's the only and the best way to learn how to be there. If any of you, please put in the chat or raise your hand and tell me or email me if you know of a better place to learn to be an owner than sitting, or even in a place to learn at all that would help you prepare to be there. So that was a clarification, Kelly. That was a specific situation, but also on fairness. I want to open us up now. We've got a little fewer than 45 minutes for any question. Could be about fairness, could be about anything else. And I'm just going to point this out here too. I know some of you are here purely to listen and learn. That is a-okay. My biggest dream is that you can learn from every issue that comes out here on the section. And also, I did have one person email me beforehand. That is always okay. And I come with questions I've been asked in the last couple of weeks to answer as well. But first, I want to open it up to anybody here. So if you want to ask a question, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button. You can raise your hand from there. If you like what I say, you can also clap, or if you like my stupid examples, you can do the laughing, crying emoji. You can celebrate, whatever you want to do to be interactive, but also you can raise your hand. Or if anybody saw Kelly just went like that, that's a way that works, but you have to have your camera on. So what other questions, concerns, issues are out there on this call? If not, I'll give it just another second. I'll go to my emailed question. This is like Dear Abby family business style. Any other questions? Oh, I see one. Okay, how was the issue? Ooh, this is looking like, how was the issue with the owner and the overpaid AR role resolved? Was there a large pay cut? Yes. Can you imagine how awkward that must have been? The good news is this, which I will say is the situation in most family businesses that I know, the level of integrity in that family was extremely high. This pattern had been repeated because it had been done in the last generation with just a misunderstanding about what healthy would look like, and in a business that was significantly smaller. So when that significant pay cut happened, the person in that AR position was understanding, had a huge amount of integrity, and took that for what it was. And sidebar or tangent a little bit, became very motivated to go get the MBA they've been thinking about getting, and now is on their way to working to a higher role in the position. So a really amazing side benefit was motivation to do what they'd kind of been thinking about doing. But I think what was going on in their head is, why go do the pain and agony of the MBA if I'm being paid like I have one? That changed. So it was very good, even though you can all imagine how awkward it was in the beginning. Great question. Thank you. That was Ty. I'm going to do my Dear Abby question, then we'll see if another one comes up. So this is, I'm making up that this is Dear Abby, but this is the question. I just want to get my head around it. Okay, so I do not know if this is true, but most of the place where I have talked about offering this office hour is in my own personal network, which is in the EOS world. So I'm going to use a lot of EOS language. And actually, if you would either send me a personal chat or an individual chat, if you're not familiar with EOS or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, then I'll be more careful about the language I'm using. But this came from a family business who had family members on the leadership team who were absolutely not getting along. People in the room could feel the tension. They were going through times where they would either not speak to each other or they were yelling and fighting with each other in front of staff. The question that I received is there a tool in the EOS world to help when conflict is that high? Here's my response. Sometimes EOS can't help at all. Sometimes the relationship is so broken that they need to go get help outside of EOS, often in the form of a therapist. Sometimes coaches can help with that as well, conflict coaches. But that is sometimes the answer, is that EOS doesn't have a tool. That being said, there are two great EOS tools that don't get as much airtime as I think they deserve. They hide away in the EOS toolbox on the trust building page. So in the EOS toolbox, there's this one little box. It's called the Trust Builders. Of the Trust Builders, I believe there are maybe 10 or 12 Trust Builders. 2 of them are really valuable when the conflict is so high that it's not healthy anymore. One is called the Personal Issue Solving Session. And I didn't get any notes from people who are saying that they're not running on EOS. So I'm going to use EOS acronyms and whatnot. If that doesn't work, please let me know. So Personal Issue Solving Session does not come with an acronym that Gino gave it, but I gave it an acronym. So, because if you look at Personal Issues Solving Session, that spells piss. This is when you're really pissed off at each other. So here's the tool. It must be facilitated by another person. Could be another person on the leadership team. Could be the integrator. If you want to call in an EOS implementer or a therapist or a coach to help you do it, it must have a third party there. Here's the agenda. Both parties need to come in with a list. 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses of the other person. 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses. If that wasn't done as homework beforehand, you need to sit quietly and do that. I've been asked many times, what's with that? I have never asked Gino why he did that, but here's my guess. Is at least when I'm really pissed at someone, I want to come in with 27 weaknesses and 0 strengths. And that's just not true. So you start with each person sharing 3 greatest strengths, 3 weaknesses of the other person. And then you make an issues list. So your companies that run on EOS, you just make an issues list. Issues might be, I don't think I should have to work on Saturdays. I don't like the way you run state of the company meetings. I don't like how you smell. I don't know, whatever these issues are, right? I don't like all the noise you make in your office. I don't like how you talk to my staff member. I don't like that you said in a public place that you don't think I should hire that person. Whatever those issues are, you just write them down on a piece of paper in front of you, whiteboard, whatever it takes. And then you IDS the issues list, just like you would in a level 10. So you say, what are the 1, 2, 3 most important issues on this list? You get to the root issue, and then you discuss. In a personal issue solving session, there will probably be some takeaways. I might promise not to bounce my basketball on the wall of my office anymore. I might promise not to say rude things about you in front of the staff anymore. I might promise to, right? Both sides might make agreements. You IDS the issues on that issues list. Now, I'm assuming the issues list isn't going to be 100 things. It's 100 things, you might have to put a time commitment around this and only solve a certain number of them. Really important next step is you make an agreement to come back, usually in about 30 days, all 3 people again, to see, have those changes, have those commitments actually happened or not. Usually with that, things are good. The rest of the team isn't walking on eggshells around folks, and there's a plan to move forward. Every once in a while, you realize after something like that, that somebody has to go from the business. I did work with a company like this a couple years ago. The next generation family member, it was actually a really big bummer. Next generation family member wanted to run on EOS purity. The dad was the visionary. Next generation was the integrator. The visionary kept coming in and telling everybody on the team what to do all over the place and going around the integrator. The dad, who was still the sole owner, said, I'm not going to stop doing that. They stopped running on EOS, and the next generation integrator got a job somewhere else. Really sad story, but way less sad than had they not had this personal issue solving session and had they just continued to bang their heads up against the wall over and over and over. So that's the first tool, personal issue solving session. That's the big mama, the big whammy that you throw out when there's that eggshell thing going on and things are yucky. Oh, I see. Are you showing your face because you have a follow-up? Or you just decide to show your face? Mendel.
I just was able to open my camera.
Okay, perfect. All right. So next tool, great tool for high conflict in family business is the clear the air meeting. This can work great between two people. It can also be a group of people. Could be the whole leadership team, could be a whole department, could be all the family members. You don't have to come with those, strengths and weaknesses. You just get in a room, say, we got to clear the air, and you put all the issues on the whiteboard or on the paper, whatever. And then you IDS, just like you always do in a level 10, most important issues, 1, 2, 3, what's the root issue, solve issues until the air is cleared. Every once in a while, maybe you need to follow up, but that's not the design of this meeting. Just getting in the room, getting the issues out in the open, IDSing them until the air is cleared. The cool thing about a clear the air meeting is it can be planned in advance or it can happen spontaneously. I've sat in a room with all EOS implementers. We get together every 90 days and someone just raised their hand and said, I think we need a clear the air meeting right now. And we did. I've done that in sessions with clients. I also have clients who have pre-scheduled them. And I've heard a rumor that somewhere in the EOS community, there's a company that just does a clear the air meeting once a year, no matter what. They just do it. So lots of different ways you can use that. So that was my Dear Abby question that came by email. How do we handle this big conflict? My one little commentary on here and that I put in the email was, you don't always know, like, is it so broken that you need a therapist's involvement? And so what I said is try one of these tools that feels right. And if it doesn't do it, then please go out and get other help. Please find a therapist who can help you. And ideally somebody who understands family business. Unfortunately, there are therapists, or I should say, or religious leaders who will say things like, well, what's fair in the family? We'll do that in the business. And they're saying that, thinking that's great advice. And they just don't understand how dysfunctional that advice is. So please go find a therapist or somebody who can help you, who understands what it means to be really healthy. Question. Hi, Jenny. Excited to see you here. I'm excited to try these tools. Matt knows we have our challenges and need all the tools. I could only stay for a part of this, but would love to join for a future one. Thanks for hosting. Thank you for being here, Jenny. Yes, the idea of this is hopefully this office hour just fits in your calendar. And if it's a day you can make it, you come, or if you've got a big issue, you come. Otherwise, you're just coming here to learn. So if there aren't questions, other questions, well, here, any clarification on the personal issue solving session or the clear the air meeting? If not, I'm going to start sharing with you. This whole idea of this office hour came because I hear from at least 2 family businesses or EOS implementers every week. And it occurred to me that I was sharing things in all those calls that I think other people can learn from. So I'm just going to start to reenact some other calls I've gotten to be a part of recently. Here's one. Kelly, this is a little bit going to your question about bringing in a board. And while EOS doesn't talk a lot about boards, a lot of family members either have them or have them and don't use them very well, or think they should have them, that kind of thing. So here was the question. Can we bring in a board to help break ties in the business? This is a 4th generation family who has some conflict in the 4th generation. And an idea that was given to them by another advisor was, well, just bring in a board. Let the two kids kind of run separate businesses. Let sales be separate from operations, and the board can come in and break ties when needed. I think I made a noise that sounded like I was laying an egg when I heard that. I was so scared for them. They are a company who runs on EOS, but they were essentially bringing in a board to be the integrator. Any of you running on EOS, and again, I'm assuming you all are, that's not how EOS works. Gino was working with his own dad. His dad was the visionary. He was the integrator when he came up with EOS. I can only imagine, because of things just like this, the integrator breaks ties. You must have an integrator running the day-to-day of the business, owning the ultimate profit or loss for the business. Boards are for sure ownership issues. Please, if you want a board, cover things like this. Use the board to help the owners get clear on, are we putting the right amount of money into this business? Do we have the right strategy for the business? If you want a board that's not family members, ask them to help you decide, should we sell it? Should we buy another business? Should we be owning the business or selling, or I'm sorry, the building or selling the business? Please use the board for big things like that. If you have a very complicated family structure around family governance, sometimes you do need a board in between the family governance issues and the business. You might need that. My experience is most family businesses who run on EOS don't have something like 7 branches of a family. That's what I mean when you have a complicated governance structure. But you might need to bring a board in there to live in between the needs of the family and the needs of the business. But please don't bring a board in to just break ties between two people. I think I might see, Matt, were you leaning forward to ask a question, or are you just getting comfortable? Just getting comfortable. Okay, all right. I hope that's helpful. Any clarifications there on that board question? I know lots of you don't have boards out there, so I just want to do that one fairly quickly. Oh, I'm just going to share this. Somebody else said this to me in the last week. Oh, I wish I could give them credit. It was a person who's part of a fractional integrator company. And here's what they said their opinion is, and I just think it's solid gold. In a strong, healthy business, you need 3 things to be strong. So of course you need a strong family, a strong business, strong ownership. This is a different set of 3 things. You need a strong operating system, whether it's EOS or something else. Pick an operating system. Their opinion for that is, because then when you have that accounts receivable person who's being overpaid, you can blame it on the system and not some poopy family member who started looking at what everybody's getting paid. You've all agreed on a system. You can blame it on the system. It takes the personalness out of it. Solid, good advice. Second thing is, you need a strong implementer, or if there's other systems you need, coach or whatever the term is, you need a third party helping you do it. I know so many family businesses who try to self-implement EOS, and I support them and I take their calls. But man, that accountability chart is tricky when you're related to people. And a lot of family businesses want to make the accountability chart look just like their family tree. And it's just really hard. Please bring in a strong implementer. And this, by the way, this call is not me trying to sell you on EOS. I'm just sharing wisdom from somebody else. Third thing you need is a strong operator, a strong integrator. And in some family businesses, that person's not a family member, and that's okay. Have a strong operator. Sitting in that integrator seat in a family business is an extremely big job, massive job. You're trying to think through the needs of the family, of the owners, of the business. If the person in that role who can be great at that job doesn't have the same last name as the owners, thank goodness if that's the right person to do it. So this was great wisdom from someone else. Have a great operating system, a great implementer, and a great operator. Woo, good stuff. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to share other things I've heard recently. Checking the time. Oh, we're great. Oh, here's a question. How in the world do 2 50-50 partners decide who should run the business? Who's the integrator? Who's the visionary? So I don't think I sounded like I laid an egg when I heard that question, but I did gasp. Because here's the beauty. I don't care who owns what in the business. It's irrelevant. The visionary should get the job. They should want the job, and they should have the capacity to do the job. Same with the integrator. The integrator should get the job, want the job, have the capacity to do the job. Just because you're an owner doesn't mean you have to be the visionary or the integrator. I see a comment. Whose job is it to tell the visionary? No. Oh, that's a great question. That makes me laugh, but it's a great question. I'm going to give a little commentary on the visionary integrator, and then I'm going to address this question. So here's what I've run into way too many times, even in when it's not a family business, is there's an owner who came up with the idea. They're just some great genius, but they're not a genius at running the business, but they think they have to. They don't. You don't. I work with this amazing family business. It's started by a dad and two twins. One of the twins is the visionary and the integrator. The dad's an owner. The other twin does a great job in his role. Just because you're an owner doesn't mean you have to take on visionary or integrator. It also doesn't mean you're just assumed to be in there. Nobody should be assuming that an owner is a visionary or an integrator. I love it. Gina Wickman once said, pop quiz, sitting in a quarterly or an annual or a focus day. How many owners are in this room? People will always look around and be like, oh, 1, 2. Oh, well, we've got 2 owners and a future owner. Wrong. 0 owners in a focus day, a quarterly, and annual. Everybody there is a member of the leadership team. Beginning and end of the sentence. Oh, I'm seeing a comment. EQUA. EQUA.
Equal member around the table.
Thank you, Matt. Is an equal member around the table, unless of course there's a tiebreaker, and then that integrator is going to break that tie. But yes, an equal leadership team member. So this great question: whose job is it to tell the visionary owner no, if they shouldn't be the visionary or the integrator? That is a tricky question. In my Sarah Stern opinion, there are maybe 2 things owners can touch when it comes to EOS tools. And the first thing is, I do believe it is okay for an ownership team to decide who they want to run the business. And I do not think, Sarah Stern, believe that doesn't include the whole leadership team. I think that means integrator or visionary or. There are some ownership teams who believe they should be able to touch also the head of sales or the head of ops or the heads of finance. I don't die in that ditch, but I don't agree. I think you should allow a person, a visionary and or integrator, to run the business. And I don't see why an ownership team should get deeper into the business than that, because I think it causes a lot of issues and it makes it hard for that person to ultimately run the business. So whose job is it to tell that owner or the integrator? Oh, whose job is it to tell the visionary? I think it depends on the situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sarah, the question is it the owner's job or is it the integrator's job to tell the visionary no?
Oh, like no to their ideas, or no to their ideas? Well, I would say it is definitely the integrator's job to say no. That being said, I said there were 2 things owners could touch in the EOS tools. I do believe it is okay for a group of owners to communicate to their visionary and or integrator the kind of profit or growth they're looking for. I think it's appropriate for an ownership team to share. We're willing to put money in, or we're not willing to put money in. I think it's appropriate for them to say, this is how much we're expecting out of it. So it could be that there are some owner priorities or guardrails they put up that would cause the integrator to ultimately tell the visionary no. That even if the integrator might want to say yes, they might have to point to, no, the owner said they're not putting any more money in for the next 12 months. So no, that kind of thing. So I gave you all the gray areas in that, but thank you for that awesome question. I'm counting on everybody on this call to ask a question, raise their hand, or chat me if they want more clarification. Otherwise, I'm just trying to pack as many bullet points, as many reasons to take a note as I can in here. Looking for comments. Okay. Oh, so there's this this thing that somebody else tried to give me credit for, but I'm sure I didn't come up with it. But the idea of a outgoing generation of a family business, whether it's first or second or third or fourth generation, but in this situation, the next generation is trying to run the business. There may be in the visionary, the integrator seat, and there's somebody in the owner's seat, or maybe they're not even an owner anymore, and they like to come into the business and either physically or by phone run around and tell people what to do, and then they cause a lot of chaos and then they leave. We call that seagull management. They come in, they shit all over everything, and they fly out the window, right? Should have warned you at the top. I can't help but to swear. So that's what you get when you show up here. Someday I'll make a website where people sign up. I'll put that warning on there. So how do you stop seagull management is the question. So I have a couple of tips and tools. The first one is run on EOS purely. If they are not on the accountability chart, they shouldn't be in there. I know I can say that and it can make no difference. So I'm going to give you a couple tools beyond that. So a reminder of the accountability chart is the first thing. But what I find, and I have a huge amount of empathy for the people who are the seagulls, probably what's happening in their life is their whole identity is this business. Their last name is above the front door. In a lot of family businesses, people have literally been coming to that actual building since before they went to kindergarten. They don't know anything different. Like, you have to keep in mind what's going on for them. That doesn't mean you let them come in and make craziness in the business, but having that mindset is helpful for the people who are struggling with this. So here are my examples of the best things I've seen to help with seagull management. One team actually put it in their 3-year picture on their VTO that the seagulling would end by then. And every quarter they had a rock to work on it. They gave it 3 years. It was more time than I wanted them to give it, but it became part of the strategic direction of the company that it would be 100% solved. That person was aware that they were on the VTO. They agreed to the 3-year. Part of that included a year-long celebration. That 3-year also happened to land, and I'm not going to remember the decade, but I think it was like their 80th anniversary of the company or something. That outgoing person ended up being very involved in the planning for the 80th birthday party or the 80th anniversary. There is a family history book that was made and videos that were made. They got that person very involved in that. They planned their retirement party. And even though they'd sort of kind of retired 2 times before, it was like, this is the final retirement party. This is the real retirement party. So that's one that I've seen. Another one that I've seen is the person who was seagulling all the way, all the time, was also telling the next generation integrator that he could not fire his brother. Absolutely could not fire his brother, no matter what. The situation with his brother, though, is he had a head injury and he had some physical disabilities from an accident. And he could really only kind of pull together 2 to 3 days of work a week. And after that, he was exhausted. But the brother who was in the integrator seat was told, you have to give him a full-time job and you just have to deal with the fact that he'll just randomly call in on a Wednesday. He'll be fine on Tuesday and not be able to make it on Wednesday. And as you can imagine, that was causing big problems in the business. What ended up happening is that seagulling visionary who was on his way out started a spin-off of the company with the brother who could only work 2 or 3 days of the week. They ended up selling some of their aging inventory in this other really fun business. And that seagull manager, that seagull owner, just got redeployed into something else that also supported and helped that other brother. So it took both of those issues out of the business. Neither of these ideas, by the way, came out of my head. I was just sitting there helping them to facilitate what's the root issue. In the first one, it was Dad just needed a hobby. He needed a place to focus, and he thrived on a long deadline. Second one, Dad was really worried about the younger son, just so worried about him. And he was kind of bored. And so they redeployed his energies in another place. So bottom line, I could tell you like 400 ideas. None of them are perfect for you. It's what's the root issue? Why is the seagulling happening? I've seen situations where the seagulling was happening because the family made the unfortunate mistake of feeling like they had to have a family member in the integrator seat, and they weren't strong and they weren't good at it. And so that leader kept seagulling all over because the integrator wasn't actually doing a good job. They had to solve and get a real integrator in there. And then that person didn't come and poop all over the business anymore. So the fact is, for you as you're listening, if you're resonating with this issue, you must just get to the root issue of why it's happening and then find your solve around that. Hopefully some of these ideas are helpful to you, but that's the real solve, is get to the root issue. Let me see another one. I've got one more here. Oh my gosh, here's this one. I got a phone call about this recently. Third generation family business. 7 brothers. Woo! No sisters, 7 brothers. I'm not going to get like 15 or 16 years apart from oldest to youngest brother. They all want to work in the business. Mom in this situation is freaking out. How do I find a seat for my 7 sons? And how do we build this business? Doesn't this sound like a biblical story? How do we build this business to support 7 families? This was the question. This was the fear. And the simple, easy answer is please don't do that. Please run on EOS. Please run on EOS. Please run on EOS. The number one way to have your business support whoever is working in it is to have a really healthy business with a clear vision that includes profitability and tools that help you have traction toward that vision. A clear and fair and appropriate definition of the right people and the right numbers to look at. Strong discipline around solving issues and process. And if that supports 0 of those 7 sons, great. Bring in somebody else to run the business, take money off the top every 90 days, distribute it to your 7 sons, and let them have a career elsewhere, if that's how it needs to be. That's the really not fun answer for that question. But the number one, they're still trying to figure out, like, where do they fit? This was a call. I have not worked with this client, but that was my response there. Really important thing here for, I think, any family business to get really, really clear about is if you took the family relationship and the last name off of people, how would you treat them? If your neighbors had 7 sons, would you try to cram all of them into your business? I don't know, maybe you might want to, but take the fact that they're family out of it and then make your decisions as a great business. When you make decisions as a great business, you are more likely to grow your business to actually become the kind of place that could support 7 families in one. I'm going to give you a quote that someone else told me. It's not about family business, but I'm so delighted by it that I have to share it. I heard it and I thought, I got to share this at the office hour. And if any of you know who actually the famous or wise person who said it first was, please let me know. So this is what I heard, and I think it's pertinent to being a leader in a family business. Here's the quote. You only have 2 lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have 1. Isn't that great? You only have 2 lives. The second life starts when you realize you only have 1. Oh, I love it. This is what made me think of this. I was talking with an integrator in a family business. There's a huge amount of conflict going on among family members because she's trying to implement processes and approaches to business that are very professional level business. The business has always been just kind of a lifestyle business before this. I shouldn't say just a lifestyle. Lifestyle businesses rock, but she's really trying to professionalize the business. And she's getting a lot of pushback, and she's very strong. She's very smart. She's very capable. She could work anywhere. And she's putting her heart and her soul and her mental health on the line to try to run her family business. And I wish I had this other quote when I was talking with her last week. What I said instead was, please do what is good for you. And I'm saying that to all of you family members out there, is I'm not asking you to be selfish in a way that is cruel or rude to anyone else. But if you feel the whole business is on the weight of your shoulders, it probably is. And if you crumble, the business will crumble and the family will crumble. And you will feel so much worse about that than making helpful, selfish decisions for yourself right now. So you do actually only have one life. Please realize that and start that second life that you get when you realize you only have one. Trying to drop some wisdom on you. I don't know if that's working. I'm probably better at dad jokes, but really important. Think about if you feel like all the weight is on you, it doesn't need to be. If you're a person who's a member of the family and you're running the business and you're an owner, you're in the middle of that 3-circle model. There is a lot of pressure on you. Please make decisions that are supportive of your own personal career goals, your family goals. Please have people know what that is. Please align yourself that you truly get one, have the capacity to be in the role that you're in. I'm looking at time here. I'm going to shoot to give you all 5 minutes back by ending early. Let me hear from you. Any hands raised or questions in the chat? If there's anything outstanding, there's a lot of people here today who haven't asked a question. So hopefully me just talking is valuable to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 folks I haven't heard from. So hoping this is helpful. Any other questions? Okay, going forward, here's the deal. I am always available in between these calls. If you're just wildly uncomfortable sharing things here, please reach out. Please invite other members of your family if that is helpful to you, or other professionals who you think would like to show up for this call. And I just want to you can say this either individually in the chat or publicly. I've been playing around with a model, a way of doing like a zoom in on the 3-circle model and tools for what make a family, a business, and ownership really strong. I'm not going to share it today. There's not time, but would you give me either a thumbs up or a yes or something in the chat, or a hell no if that's of interest to you? I think I'm able to share it next time. So I'm seeing nothing. Oh, there. Oh, sounds interesting. Thank you, Ty, for your involvement twice here today. Oh, there's the thumbs up. Okay, we're doing it. I like it. Kirsten, the old-fashioned way, the actual thumbs up. Okay, beautiful. Okay, thumbs up. All right, awesome. Okay, we'll see. Maybe I'll pull it up. I also know you might not be the people here next time, so you're voting for future people. Oh, Casey, thank you. Casey, you might be the Casey I remember last time, who I was talking to a different Casey, and then here you are. Nice to see you if that's you again. I think I've said way too many times. Apologize for that. Let me look one more time at my list of prepared questions from last week, or just the conversations I've had in the last week. Okay, I'll leave you with this last thing. My other favorite EOS tool that just hides away in the world of EOS. It's in the book, How to Be a Great Boss. It's also in the leadership team manual. I believe it's under the management section. It's I am listening well, I believe. But anyway, it's this concept of 2 emotions. So this is also can be a way to handle conflict in a family business, but also just a generally great way to have conversation. I know there's at least one therapist on this call, and this might make you crazy, Callie, because this is such an oversimplification of emotions, but that's what we do in EOS. So forgive all of us, please, if it's terrible. But hiding in the LMA tool is this concept of 2 emotions, and it's this. If there's just something funky between you, and it doesn't have to be a family member, but this could be a very helpful tool to use with other family members, and start getting into the habit of it. If you don't need the whole personal issue solving session, you don't need to clear the air, but something feels kind of funky, you can say, can we do 2 emotions? Like, oh, that conversation felt yucky. Can we try the 2 emotions? Or when I was presenting that concept, I thought I saw a look on your face that was saying, hell no. Like, I want to check in with you. Here's what 2 emotions is. It's just each person shares a positive emotion and a negative emotion. And that's where, Callie, I cringe, because I think you're probably like, come on, there's way more than just positive and negative, but it gets it started. So, okay, your face is telling me it's okay. So, okay, enough, right? So let's say I'm trying to change, I'm the integrator, I'm trying to change how we're doing operations. And my sibling runs operations and they're upset about it, or I think they're upset. I say, Please share positive and a negative. And the positive might be, wow, Sarah, I'm glad you're pushing us to be better. Negative is, I'm worried. I don't know how to get my team behind it. My positive and negative, if I'm the integrator, is my positive is, I'm so glad you're willing to hear my ideas and what I'm trying to do. And my negative is, I'm scared to death that we're looking like a family who's fighting instead of being good leaders. You just start with that, and then you take the conversation from there. This is a tiny little tool hiding on a little tiny page in your leadership team manual and in the How to Be a Great Boss book that is so valuable when you're being a family business leader and when you're just trying to communicate with your family members. I hope this is helpful. I hope all of this has been helpful, just to listen, learn, hopefully take a few notes. It's amazing to see you. I will be back for 1 hour starting at 1 p.m. Central Time every other week. Although I've been having people ask for every week. Let me know if you'd prefer every week. Right now it's every other. I'm really thrilled you were here. Thank you for spending this time with me. And I'm going to finish us just a few minutes early. Have an awesome week.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, Sarah.
you.